My name is Paul Russell and welcome to SpacePod, a friendly chat with thought leaders around the world of workspace. I'm supported by my regular buddy, Paul Gatland, who helps IBM's customers use software to help manage their real estate and buildings. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Paul.
And it's a real pleasure to have with us today Danny Palmer from the British Council of Offices, who I'm really looking forward to hearing from, given the focus on office space and return to work. Welcome, Danny.
Hello, Paul.
Bit of a disclaimer, SpacePod's just a place for personal points of view, and it's not a place for any official announcements or any official corporate strategy. So with that out of the way, Danny, I want to start off with, it's fair to say you have two hats, right? You're a role at Overbury, and you're also chairman of the British Council of Offices Midlands organisations. Could we get your story, please?
My day job is I am a business development manager at Overbury here in the Midlands. I have been a committee member of BeCEO, British Council for Offices, for about 8 years. And then I was elected to chair of the Midlands and East Anglia Committee about a year ago.
I read a survey recently from BeCEO that suggested that 20% of UK adults plan primarily to work from home in the future. And that really intrigued me, given the fact that the majority of us are still working from home and not in offices. And it also said that only 16% hope that working from home replaces the office, which I guess for the BeCEO and managing offices, and also for us, that's good news. Your CEO has made this great quote: just because people can do something doesn't mean they will. And that the office remains popular because we're social beings who really want to work best together. So I'd just love your point of view on that, Danny.
Absolutely right. The phrase, the office is not dead, comes to mind. The survey that BeCEO carried out across 3,500 BeCEO members across the country, the feedback, as you say, is 1 in 5 don't plan to work from home primarily. As you've touched upon, we are social animals, and as much as working from home seems to be proven to be productive, two things that it can't do is we cannot socialize with our colleagues, which is very much and we can't collaborate from home. And without collaborating, we cannot progress our businesses. For that reason, the office environment will continue to exist, albeit it may not and probably will not be how we used to use it in the past.
This podcast, for example, we've talked to many other interested leaders like yourself, and we're getting that kind of feel that we will go back, but we may find that maybe have a different way of doing it. And that really impinges on lots of different things. Paul, I think you wanted to ask Danny a question.
So I had a question just around the industry as a whole. So, the entire industry, including the tech industry, is looking to redesign, restack space. So I'm wondering what point of view BeCEO may have on architectural changes for the future.
BeCEO, just going back a couple of steps, was formed in London over 25 years ago. And the reason why it was formed was it wanted to educate the developers of office buildings on how their occupiers wanted to use that space. Bigger windows, less columns, all that kind of stuff. And BeCEO learns from what occupiers want, and then through surveys, through research papers, through technical tours, informs the BeCEO membership and the wider property community of what the trends are and what best practices as far as office environments are concerned. There is going to be a different trend in how offices are going to be used. We're not there yet. We're at that phase at the moment of keeping people safe in the office. Once we start occupying the office beyond the point of safe, then look more like a pure collaboration space. I hope that sort of answers your question.
It's interesting you said about sort of keeping people safe, because obviously that's got to be the forefront of everyone's mind. And the collaboration space, we've heard this before around perhaps a redesign to have more of an open plan. Obviously, the interesting point around that is just how you can ensure that that space is correctly cleaned and sanitized for when one individual leaves to another arriving.
As you were talking then, Danny, it kind of gets me thinking about what other people have been saying and about the way cities are going to change. And of course, we've almost now got a prerequisite that the trains and public transport need to be safe first. If they're not, then when people logically are not going to make the journey. A couple of people talk about the rebirth of like the community office space and even those sort of business park layouts that probably may have got neglected over time. There's not one far from me, which is redundant right now. You just wonder whether they might go through a rebirthing, because actually I can walk to that one, or I could even just cycle, whereas I'm not going to travel into London on the train at the moment anyway. From a BeCEO perspective, are there any views on this sort of move to the kind of business park world again?
The business park has had to reinvent itself anyway before this pandemic, because it was competing against the city centre office destinations where you have lots of amenities, restaurants and bars and coffee shops and things like that, where people will like to collaborate from and have their coffee meetings and such like. Whereas business parks have very few amenities, or did have very few amenities in the past. So over the last 5 to 10 years, many business parks are trying to be a lot more inviting. So this particular situation, I think, will make business parks more attractive, because they're going to be easier to get to by personal transport rather than public transport. Car parking spaces will be more available at business parks, than business park owners will continue to provide more and more amenity spaces if they're going to get employers moving away from city centre location. The occupier, at the end of the day, the user of the office, wants lots of conveniences around them. If public transport is not a good idea, but the only bad idea as far as this pandemic is concerned, but everything else around a city centre is very sociable. And when I talk about sociable, I'm talking about work-wise, where the workspace, there's two types of workspaces: the internal workspace inside the office building, and the external workspace, your park areas, your coffee shops, and your, all these public realm which are being designed into new developments to allow people to work from the outside, weather permitting, Wi-Fi connectivity, all those kinds of things. So there is a lot going in the city centre location. The business park has to provide very similar facilities.
Paul mentioned that you had a couple of hats, Danny, so was quite keen to hear about your other job at Overbury, and perhaps, to give us an insight into what your organisation is doing, to help customers manage their spaces.
Overbury is a leading office fit out and refurbishment specialist. Over the time I've been with Overbury, which is over 30 years, the business has grown from a London operation into a national operation. My role is relationship manager, business development manager, to get the work coming in. With that dual hat I wear with BeCEO and with Overbury, I have a lot of similarities and a lot of overlap. BeCEO membership is mainly specifiers such as architects, engineers, surveyors, office agents, other contractors and suppliers make up the BeCEO membership. My line of business with Overbury has a similar contact base. In both situations, we are talking about the office environment. From an Overbury point of view, the office environment in the time I've been working with Overbury has changed hugely. When I started working for Overbury, the office environment was very, very cellular. And over time, it became open plan. I remember many years ago, people used to say, we won't need fit-out contractors anymore because there'll be no meeting rooms to be built. How wrong they were, because the office environment continues to change, and the flexibility of the office environment truly does need someone like Overbury to provide that flexibility. And this particular situation we're going through with the pandemic also require someone like BeCEO and someone like Overbury to change the office environment to the new way of working, the new normal, as my BeCEO CEO calls it, to evolve. And that is going to happen over the next few years. And as the environment evolves from open plan to agile working to collaborative space to possibly more cellular spaces, meeting pods, things like that, it'll be a requirement that will need the likes of Overbury, BeCEO and IBM, because they're also, buildings are going to get a lot more smarter than they are now.
So one last question. I'm just thinking about BeCEO members and who they are. What do they get from being a member? What is the pull to get them to become a member of the BeCEO? Have you got a couple of minutes to talk about that?
First and foremost, BeCEO is a forum of learning and improving the office environment for its user. That was why it was set up over 25 years ago, to improve the occupier's experience of an office. And BeCEO has delivered that over the years by undertaking research and surveys and technical tours of what good buildings look like and what bad buildings look like. That is, as I said, the first and foremost purpose of the existence of BeCEO. The member consists of specifiers, people who design office buildings, people who design the interiors of office buildings, people who also design the mechanical, electrical systems within office buildings. They learn so much from what BeCEO, the research that BeCEO carries out. So BeCEO carries out about 10 pieces of research a year. They could be short pieces of research or very detailed pieces of research. They create guides of good practice. So one particular guide, which is the Bible that most specifiers use for designing offices externally and internally, is the Guide to Specification. That is being produced by BeCEO for the last 15 or so years, and gets regularly updated every few years. We updated the BeCEO Guide to Specification last year, and it's a tool that not just BeCEO members, but the architectural fraternity, the office agents, and many others, mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, turn to when they say, we're designing this building, what does the BeCEO guide say about the design of this particular thing to do with the office? So it's a great piece of research. But we have other guides as well, guide to lighting, guide to density levels. So if you're a BeCEO member, you can tap into this research, you can tap into these guides, they're online. Secondly is you actually network with people from the same world as you, with those agents, with those specifiers, with their supply chain, to make you more connected with the people you do business with. Over the years, BeCEO has grown to now 3,500 members across the UK.
In terms of relationships BeCEO has, because you're then talking about, people come to you for the specifications of, this office. I'm thinking more about the office design, and I don't mean from an architecture point of view, but I'm trying to understand myself. Do they come to you for guidance, or it's not legislation, is it? It's guidance on, so floor plate design in terms of, the amount of space per person. Are they coming to you on guidance on that?
BeCEO Guide to Specification guides you in how much density levels of people to space should be, how many toilets should be provided for a number of people to space, how much ventilation should be provided. All those kinds of pieces of guidance is available from the BeCEO through research, through surveys over time. It's also about the sustainability, the full life cycle development of a building, and now very much well-being of the office environment for its occupier.
Danny, we're out of time. Big thank you. Great to hear about BeCEO and also Overbury, and well done for you for having two hats to wear. It's for me, it's bad enough having to wear just one. Paul, I think you might feel the same. Big thank you to you. To the listeners, if you liked what you heard, then please tell others. You've been listening to Space Pod. Please stay safe.